Most men don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because one day they wake up and realize their life never actually started. Not because they didn't want it. Not because they didn't believe hard enough. But because they spent years doing the one thing that feels responsible and is secretly lethal. They waited. They waited to feel ready. They waited to feel confident. They waited to feel healed. They waited for the perfect plan. They waited for the perfect mentor. They waited for permission. And while they waited, life kept charging them interest. If you feel behind, you're not crazy. If you feel like your potential is heavier than your reality, you're not broken. But you are in danger, because the most dangerous place on earth is the space between who you are and who you know you could be. This is Rewired Reality, and today I'm going to tell you the truth about late bloomers, complex minds, and the quiet tragedy that destroys high potential men. Not with comfort, with clarity, with a standard. And if this hits you in the chest, good. That pressure is not anxiety, it's the call. It's your life demanding you stop thinking about becoming and start building. There is a quiet tragedy haunting men with complex minds. It's not loud. It doesn't look like a breakdown. It doesn't show up as a headline. It shows up as a silent suspicion that you have somehow failed before you even understood the game. You look around and the timeline doesn't match your own. You see peers who sprinted into adulthood, careers, families, status, straight lines, early certainty, and then there's you. Your path wasn't straight, it was a spiral. You started, you stopped, you obsessed, you mastered, then you abandoned it when the meaning drained away. To the outside world, it looks like inconsistency. Inside, it has felt like war. And the worst part? You started treating your difference as a defect. Behind, lazy, undisciplined, wasted. But I'm going to flip the frame. Yes, your life has moved slower, but not because you're weak. It's because you've been carrying weight other people never carried. It's because you refused a life that wasn't real. It's because you're not built for shallow wins. Now you have two choices. You can romanticize your complexity until it becomes your coffin, or you can turn that complexity into power. Carl Jung would not look at your timeline with concern. He would look at it with recognition. Some people are psychologically incompatible with early superficial success, not because they lack talent, because they have too much depth, too much sensitivity to meaning, too much internal material to integrate. To the outside world, you look like a late bloomer, but in the deeper reality of the psyche, something else is happening. A gestation period proportional to the destiny you're meant to carry. The oak tree does not grow at the speed of grass. But Rewired Reality draws a hard line. Depth is not an excuse. Gestation is not permission to delay. If you use your complexity as a reason to stay in the waiting room, you will die in the waiting room. So we use this truth the right way, as an explanation for your path, and a weapon to move you forward. We live in a culture that worships speed. Prodigies, 30 under 30, overnight success, viral geniuses. It makes the slow work of the soul feel like laziness. It makes the man who needs meaning before motion feel defective in a world addicted to motion without meaning. Jung proposed a counter-narrative. The first half of life is preparation. For certain men, that preparation comes with friction, suffering, and stripping away false identities. While others learned the rules and played, you kept asking the question that stops you cold. Why are we playing this game at all? That question slows you down. While others climbed ladders, you stared at the ladder and realized it was leaning against the wrong wall. You can't do mindless action. You need meaning before commitment. That's not weakness. That's your soul refusing to fund a life that isn't yours. But that same trait becomes dangerous when it turns into paralysis. Let's talk about the shame. Because high potential men don't usually collapse in public, they collapse in private. They keep a strong face, they make jokes, they stay fine. And then they lay in bed at night with a thought they can't silence. I'm wasting my life. You feel exhausted even when you haven't done enough. Because you don't just live, you decode. Every interaction is data. Every shift in mood is data. Every rejection, every compliment, every strange look, your mind archives it. You replay conversations, you see patterns, you imagine outcomes, you run simulations. Like a high-performance system, your startup time is longer. But once you're online, once you build structure, you outpace the sprinters. Nature commits no errors. If you're built this way, it's because the world needs men like this. The world is full of men who keep the machine running, but when the machine breaks, when meaning collapses, those men crumble, because they built identity on external validation. And external validation can be taken away in an instant. Here's the truth about your late success. It's not a delayed version of normal success. It's a different species. It's success built from resilience, forged in the dark, rooted in self-knowledge the world cannot take from you, because the world never gave it to you. Jung called the process individuation. For most people, life is imitation. They copy parents. They copy culture. They inherit a personality like a uniform. For you, life has been subtraction. You've lost friends who didn't understand you, lost jobs that suffocated you, lost beliefs that turned out to be illusions, lost versions of yourself that were never real. It feels like going backward. In alchemy, it's the nigredo, the blackening, the decomposition of the false self. You had to fail at being normal so you could succeed at being you. But I need you to hear this clearly. Pain without direction becomes poison. If you don't turn this depth into action, your depth becomes a swamp. And the waiting room is where men like you rot. Jung called it the provisional life, always preparing to live, never living. One day when I'm ready, one day when I understand more, one day when I've fixed myself. Readiness never arrives, because readiness is a mirage. The shift does not happen by thinking. It happens through action that bridges the inner world and the outer world. So here is the turning point. There comes a moment when thinking stops working. Insight no longer protects you. Intelligence no longer saves you. All that's left is pressure. That pressure is not punishment, it's a summons. Your soul is tired of floating. It wants gravity. It wants earth. It wants friction. This is why men like you feel a sudden urge to train, build, create, lead. Your psyche is demanding incarnation. And here's the thing, your body is not a side quest. Your body is the bridge. Because discipline is not a philosophy, it's a practice. And practice requires a body. You want clarity? Train. You want confidence? Keep a promise. You want self-respect? Do hard things when no one is watching. Now here's the obstacle that keeps you stuck. The puer aeternus, the eternal child. Not childish in intellect, uncommitted in life. You love potential and secretly despise actuality. Because real life is imperfect, repetitive, limited. Committing feels like killing possibilities. So you hover above reality, protected by maybe. You don't choose, so you can't lose. You don't commit, so you can't fail. But you also can't win. That feels safe, but it is spiritual suicide, because time does not negotiate. So here is the rewired reality standard. You don't need more insight, you need more contact. Contact with resistance, contact with discomfort, contact with your own word, because your mind will keep you trapped as long as it can avoid the risk of execution. So we force execution with 3 laws. Law 1, you build identity through proof. Your brain doesn't believe what you say, it believes what you do consistently. If you want confidence, you don't find it, you forge it. Pick one daily non-negotiable act that proves you are who you say you are. 1, not 10, not a perfect routine, 1 proof. Train 20 minutes, write 30. Build 1 business asset. Clean 1 room. Track your money. Wake up on time. Read 10 pages. Practice the skill. The content matters less than the consistency, because consistency is identity, and identity is destiny. If you are inconsistent, your identity stays negotiable. And if your identity is negotiable, your life becomes negotiable. Law 2, embody your intuition. Your intuition is worthless if it never becomes matter. You've lived in ideas, visions, theories. Now you bring it down to earth. Take the idea you keep protecting like a fragile dream and do something physical with it this week. Publish a rough version. Launch the small offer. Record the first video. Write the first page. Make the call. Join the gym. Book the session. Your goal is not perfection. Your goal is landing the plane. A plane that never lands isn't flying, it's circling. And circling is fear dressed up as intelligence. Law 3, integrate the shadow or stay small. For years you tried to be harmless. You buried ambition, anger, dominance, because you confused power with corruption. Jung warned, you don't become whole by denying the dark, but by making it conscious. Your ambition isn't greed, it's fuel. Your anger isn't destruction, it's boundary. Your drive isn't evil, it's leadership energy when guided by conscience. The late bloomer rises when he stops apologizing for his power. When shallow men gain power, they become dangerous. When you gain power, you become stable, because empathy came first. Suffering came first. Humility came first. Your success won't be frantic, it will be inevitable. Now let me add the part that separates inspiration from transformation. You must stop outsourcing your life to moods, because moods are weather, standards are architecture. If you build your life on moods, your life collapses every time the weather changes. But if you build your life on standards, you become a man who can be trusted by himself. And that trust is the root of everything. Now understand this, the world is changing. Automation erases the value of shallow speed. AI erases the value of memorization and obedience. What remains valuable is depth, pattern recognition, synthesis, emotional resilience, meaning-making. The exact skills you built in the dark. So yes, you were early for a future that is arriving now, but only if you step forward. Think of the bamboo. For years, you water it and nothing happens. A tiny shoot, barely visible. To the outside observer, it looks dead. But underground, a massive root system spreads, anchoring deep, preparing to support a weight not yet visible. Then it explodes upward. Did it grow fast? Or did it grow underground for years? You are the bamboo. Your silence wasn't empty, it was pregnant. You were growing roots while others grew leaves. And because of that, when you rise, you won't be toppled by the first wind. Early achievers often have shallow roots. A crisis hits and they snap. But you already survived the crisis of meaning in the dark. You are anti-fragile. And here's the synthesis that almost nobody talks about. For years, your life felt fragmented. A little psychology, a random skill in design, an obsession with mechanics, a spiritual hunger, a business itch. People told you, pick one, stop jumping, you're scattered. But here's the truth. You were not scattered. You were constellating. You were gathering ingredients for a recipe no one else can cook. Early achievers specialize. Late bloomers integrate. When your moment arrives, it won't look like a linear promotion. It will look like geometric alignment. Every detour becomes leverage. Every wasted year becomes a tool. You needed depression to understand depth. You needed isolation to develop vision. You needed skill to build the container. This becomes your great work, not just a career, but the full expression of your soul's code. And because it's made of diverse, authentic materials, it can't be copied. You become a category of one. In a world of commodities, you become irreplaceable. But I'm not letting you leave with a myth, because none of this matters if you keep living in the stands. If you keep criticizing gladiators instead of becoming one. If you keep learning about discipline instead of practicing it. So here is the ritual that ends the waiting room. For the next 30 days, you do not negotiate with yourself. If you said you would do it, you do it. No mood check, no motivation check, no tomorrow. You will be shocked how fast your identity changes when your word becomes law. If you're asking, what should I do? Do the smallest action that proves you are no longer waiting. Today. Not the perfect plan. One step into friction. Because confidence is not a prerequisite, it's a receipt. Let me make this real. Picture a man sitting in his car outside his house. Engine off. Phone in his hand. He's been planning for years. He's watched the videos, saved the quotes, bought the notebooks, made the calendars. But every night he walks back inside the same life. And the reason isn't that he doesn't know what to do. It's that he's avoiding the first painful truth. The first step isn't big, it's humiliating. It's doing something small before you feel like the man you want to be. So here's your first step checklist. Simple, brutal, effective. Pick one daily proof, 10 to 30 minutes. Remove one escape, scrolling, sugar, porn, late nights. Tell one person your standard so it becomes real. Track it for 30 days, no debate. That's how the spiral becomes a line. That's how the late bloomer becomes inevitable. Now listen carefully. You are not late because you lack potential. You are late because you refused a false life. But if you keep delaying, your gifts become grief, and grief becomes bitterness, and bitterness becomes a man who spends the rest of his life explaining why he didn't become who he was meant to be. Not because he couldn't, because he wouldn't commit. Don't be that man. You were never late. You were being forged. And now your time is not soon. Your time is now. The curtain is rising. The arena is open. And your life does not care how intelligent you are. It only cares what you build. If you're done preparing, comment Day 1. If you're ready to stop circling and finally land the plane, subscribe. Not for motivation. As a signal to your own psyche, preparation is over, because big changes are built on small choices, and the cost of staying the same is everything you could have become.